So happy Monday, everyone. Hi, we're just a little bit early. We're going to do some checking to make sure that everything is all set. So we're like just a few minutes early. Hello.
Let me get set up a little better there. Wait a second. Whoa. Okay, 1 second. Let's see if I can just down a little lower.
We're just getting ready, everyone.
Okay. All right. Is that good?
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know if it's time yet because
Should I
get a clock?
I'm just wondering about that light behind me. Maybe I'm going to turn this around.
I think it's good.
Oh, it's okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Right. Okay, so usually I say, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? But I feel like everyone knows who you are on this, so I think we could.
Maybe there's some new people. Maybe they don't know.
I don't know. I could tell you what we're talking about. Somebody just asked.
Okay.
But I don't know. So this I read. Is it straight? Better behavior.
It's backwards. It's
backwards.
Backwards.
So
It's my
okay.
book.
Well, I'll post a picture of it later. I read it in one weekend, like less than 24 hours, and it was such a I can't even say it was a light read, but it was an easy read.
Mm-hmm.
And very practical.
Mm-hmm.
and like really things that you could apply right away, and effective, and also not just for parenting.
Right.
Like it is pretty heavily written for parenting, but like I could just implement
use it on your husband, right?
or myself,
or yourself, yes, or anybody you know or work with. Absolutely, right.
For sure, myself. I felt like a lot of those things are like, oh, I should just do that myself, like, you know. But we could get. I feel like we're teasing everyone. We should probably get.
You should give the title. Give them the title of the book.
Okay, so the title of the book is "Better Behavior Now: Bringing Out the Best." Except you're not going to be able to read it because it's backwards. In your child or teen. Mm-hmm. It's Sarah Chana Radcliffe's new book. Mm-hmm. And I guess you could give a little bit of an overview of who you are, even though everybody, I'm sure, really knows.
I'll make it very brief, yeah. I'm a psychologist. I have a private practice for 4 decades, and I'm an author of this book, plus Raise Your Kids Without Raising Your Voice, and The Fear Fix, and Make Yourself at Home, and Harmony at Home, and a whole bunch of other books. I'm a columnist for Mishpacha's magazine, Family First section. I write a column every week. And I speak and lecture and teach about parenting, marriage, personal stress, life. So that's about it.
Pretty much everything.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you want to give it like an overview, a basic overview about what the book is before I start?
Okay. Yeah, like you said, it's really a very tiny book, and it's meant to be a quick read, and it really zeroes in on one point in parenting. It's almost like a magnifying glass for the chapter in my bigger parenting book called Raise Your Kids Without Raising Your Voice, where I talk about ways of helping children's behavior, which I'm going to explain behavior in a minute, because some people, we've moved a lot in parenting education towards an understanding of children's hearts and their emotions, okay, and our own hearts and our own emotions, and that's a very huge part of parenting. So this book is about behavior, and I just actually want to explain why it is about behavior, if you don't mind. We parents love our children kind of just because, that's unconditional love. But then when our children get old enough to move, move from one room to another, or have their own, they have their own free will even from the beginning, but exert their own free will. So do what they want. Then the real job of parenting, which is guiding children, raising children, that starts then, because if we didn't have to raise them, they could just live like by themselves and grow up by themselves, and whatever would be would be. But we are actually trying to teach them skills, behaviors, attitudes that will help them be successful and healthy in life to the extent that we can do it. We don't have total control. I'm hearing such a funny noise here. Do you hear this funny noise squeaking? Good, fine. Okay. Okay, good. So anyways, so behavior is what a person does and says. So it's not about what they think, and it's actually not about what they feel. But what we do and say over and over again becomes our character, because, like, let's just say that you yell a lot, you know, we might say you're an angry person. Or if a child was to be very generous with toys, always sharing, giving away their candies and things, we might say that that child is a very generous person, or very kind, or very sweet. If a person, you know, a teenager is hitting those books every night and she's really studying, we might say that she's very studious, or she's very responsible, or she's very dedicated or committed. What we do again and again becomes who we are. So we parents aren't supposed to just stand by and watch our children, let's say, punch each other out or yell at us and think, okay, it's just a bad moment. It's actually not a bad moment. It's a learning that the brain is now doing. And the brain is studying. Our brains watch us, and they go like, okay, like she's screaming right now, or she's grabbing toys right now, whatever she's doing. And the brain is looking to see how that's working. Okay, so if it works, then the brain says, okay, let's do that again next time we're in this situation. Let's take it with a child, even a little kid, who has figured out that if he wants a toy from somebody in the play group, or somebody at school, or somebody in the family, if he wants a toy, all he has to do is get up, walk over to the person, push them down, and grab the toy. Okay? And his brain watches him do that and says, did that work? And the kid goes, yeah, I got the toy. Plus, not only did he get the toy, but somebody's screaming and crying like the other little victim there. Maybe adults are rushing over and giving a ton of attention. And the brain is going like, wow, this is so exciting. I got the toy and I got all this action. Now, from the brain's point of view, our brains eat action. Like they want stimulation. One of the worst things for us is to be painfully bored. One of the worst punishments that you can give a prisoner is to put him in an isolation room where he's all by himself and there's no stimulation. Okay, our brains are hungry for stimulation. So when we get stimulation, all the bells and whistles go off, and in the brain, and the brain says, make a circuit for whatever you did right now, because that was fantastic. Whoa, you know. So once the kid has discovered that grabbing the toy did all that, chances are very high that he'll grab the toy again and again and again. Okay, and now he's toy grabber. Okay, for what kind of character he has. So, you know, as parents, sometimes we say, oh, you know, he'll grow out of it. He just needs to mature. Maybe. But another thing that might be happening is that the child's brain is actually wiring in circuits, habits, routines, and ways of being that will last a lifetime. And we don't, you know, our job is to look and try and encourage brain habits that will serve our kids well for a lifetime. So that's why I want to look at behavior in depth. It's really important. It's not a minor side point. And I know that some people think that when we start intervening with behavior, we are becoming control freaks, okay? Because we want our child to do something or say something the way we want him to. But I want to also disavow us of that notion, because we only want the child to do or say the kinds of things that will bring that child success and happiness, and we're trying to help the kid go down that road. So yeah, there's a little control there in terms of we're going to guide a child in a certain direction. Parents are, by that definition, a little controlling because we want kids to do things a certain way, not eat with their hands or whatever it is, not talk with their mouthfuls. Like, we want things from them, clean their room. We want things from them. We want them to be civilized and socialized and healthy. And that's why we are guiding them. I don't like to say controlling them, but guiding them in behavior.
So I actually I'm glad that you mentioned that point, because when I first read the title, Better Behavior Now, what I thought was, oh, is she like trying to teach us how to control our kids?
Mm-hmm.
And then, when I read your description of what you really meant by that,
Mm-hmm.
I was so, it was so actually very heartwarming, because the way that I felt that you described it was you're basically setting them up for future success in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want them to fail as adults. And somebody once said to me, we had a police officer that worked at the school that I used to work for,
Mm-hmm.
and he once told me, you know what kids who punch each other to solve problems end up doing? They end up being in jail.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to teach your kids that you do not punch to solve problems. Right? And some kids learn it naturally as time goes on, and some kids don't. Mm-hmm. But anyways, I loved the way that you described it, because it was a very balanced, I really thought that it was going to be very heavily, CBT like structure, but it's really, there's a lot of like love and caring behind the whole method, which I was really impressed by, and I really thought that it was very special. Mm-hmm. What I'll tell you, my favorite topic in the book.
What's that?
And my kids were ready to kill me, because I talked about it for we were driving for an hour, and I was talking about neuroplasticity, because I've been doing like a lot of research on that topic, and so I was so excited when you had it in your book. So can you explain what that is? Yes.
Actually, it's also my favorite part of the book, in the sense that the book is not a science book. It's not heavy on this. It just shows us what is actually going on in the child's brain, or in anybody's brain, like you said, like in our brain as well. And it shows us why most of our natural parenting techniques are completely ineffective. And once we understand that, I think we'll never do the old thing again. Like once we really get this. The neuroplasticity is about what causes a circuit to form in the brain. In the book, I call it a wire, just so that we can picture wires, but really it has to do with synapses and electricity moving along and, doing that synaptic thing. But let's just call it a wire, okay? So if somebody, and I said before, the brain is watching us. So let's say somebody is learning to swing a tennis racket, or I don't know, or do something with the ball, okay? When they move their hand to hit that ball, because now I've moved to basketball somehow, but anyways, when they hit they move their hand, the brain watches that and says, do we need that movement again? Do we ever need it again? It's kind of like if I tell you right now, remember the number 5382654C ! Okay?
I won't.
You won't, because you don't need it. So your brain heard it, but it's going to drop it. It's going to say, no, I don't need that. But if I tell you that number is now the password to everything that you have, okay, you're going to need that number. How are you going to get it in your brain?
I don't know. Can you say it again? No.
Exactly. First, I'll have to say it again. But let me say, if I said it again, what would you do? Because I could say it 10 times. It's not in your brain. How will you get it to have a location in your brain and make it permanent so you can use it to open up all your devices all the time?
I'd probably put a note on my phone, because that's what I do with it. Oh, I shouldn't tell everyone.
But this is your secret password, and nobody should see it, so we don't want it on your phone. Okay? I want you to remember it. How are you going to remember it? And this is just how we learn.
I would have to repeat it over.
Yes. Okay. So you would have to do something. Okay. And you said one thing, you could just repeat it. Another thing, maybe you could write it. You could sing it. Okay. But you're going to have to do something. And every time you do it, that circuit is formed in the brain. It's like 1 wire, 2 wires, 3 wires. Now, if you keep doing it, your brain says, oh, she really wants to learn this number. Okay. Or she really wants to hit that ball. you know, and so we better lock in this wire and keep it here, because we have to prove to our brain that this is something that we want to keep. And apparently, the way there's not endless neural territory, although there's a lot of things we can learn, the brain will not give space like a locker to a circuit unless we need it. Okay, so that's why it just drops a million things kind of out of the way, and we just have the things we need in here. So, so when we do it again and again and again and again, the brain notices that we're interested in it, and it may lock it in. The other thing that will cause it to lock something in is when we have all those fireworks. Remember I said like bells and whistles and things happen. The brain goes, whoa, whatever that was, lock it in. Okay. So
also, the last thing that on when we spoke last about the Amazon model of the brain.
Yes.
That was really cool.
Yes.
I really like that.
Yes.
You guys could check out our previous, like scroll back on some of our posts and the information will be there for that.
I think that was the anxiety talk, or was it, or the
either anxiety or parenting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anxiety, because it's what we decide to put our attention on.
Oh yes. So
what we put our attention on gets lost.
I have it right here.
Oh, good.
If anyone wants to see it.
Nice lady.
It's on my wall.
Great. Okay, so so now, once we have something locked in, let's say we as a parent found that yelling at our kids works for us in a certain way. First of all, it's a lot of noise, and that the brain likes that excitement. And maybe everybody will scream and cry, or maybe they'll yell back, and there's more excitement. Or more likely, when we finally yell, maybe the kid will do what we wanted him to do. Go to bed, or stop hitting his brother, or stop being dangerous, or whatever. Okay, because so the brain goes like, whoa, that worked. Lock in the yelling. So let's say what happens is there are neurological things happening between two people all the time also. So between husband and wife, between parent and child, we become the trigger for something that's going to go on in the child's brain. Let's say a husband's brain, for example, or a spouse's brain. So if the spouse does something I don't like, that's called a trigger to cause me to do something that I tend to do when he does something I don't like, okay? So let's say I criticize. That's what I do. So he does something that I don't like, I criticize. When I criticize, he does something in response to that because I'm the trigger for him. And so we are locked into brain circuits with each other, right? So let's go back to the yelling one for a second. So the kids finally stopped doing whatever they were doing when we yell. And so we were the trigger for them to change their behavior. And they're not doing what we wanted them to do or whatever. It might have been the trigger for us yelling after a certain point, after we asked nicely 15 times or whatever. Now, let's say we read a good book and we learn that, like my book, Raise Your Kids Without Raising Your Voice. And we learn there that yelling is not a good thing to do with kids. And we want to get rid of that circuit. We might have been yelling for a few years already, but we want to just like remove that circuit from the brain and replace it with calm, patient speech, more loving techniques, more respectful techniques.
So it's better behavior now for parents.
Is it for parents?
Yeah, because we're training our own brains.
Well, exactly. And we can use the techniques in there on ourselves to help rewire. But if I want to remove the yelling circuit from my brain, is that going to be an easy or hard thing for me to do? You ever met a parent who tried to stop yelling?
Yeah, when I read your the one about raising your kids without raising your voice, I really tried hard.
Yes. So have you never yelled again?
No, I definitely yell a lot. But actually the better behavior now zeroed in on like more of the how to. Yes,
that's the thing. It's like even understanding, like you said, the neuroplasticity of it, like how will we change that brain circuit? Mm-hmm. So one of the things you'll see in the book is we cannot develop the new circuit that we want unless, first of all, we know what that new circuit is. So instead of yelling at our kids, for example, we need to know what we want to do. And it's like, let's say they're doing something that we don't like. That's going to be called the trigger. And from that trigger, we have a pathway that goes to making noise. I'm going to take the kid, never mind us. I'll take the kid who wants his brother to give him the iPad. Okay, let's take this kid. So he asked the brother, "Can I have the iPad?" And the brother says, "I'm busy. I'm using it." Okay, so the kid says, "No, it's my turn. I want the iPad." You know, so the kid says, "No, not now." So the trigger now is a certain amount of frustration that the one who wants it is feeling. And this is the trigger, and he goes down this road now, which is to grab the iPad. That seems to have worked for him in the past, okay? Now, when parents want to fix that, because they don't want him grabbing the iPad, because that's an aggressive act, it's not a socially appropriate way to get things, okay? It's going to cause a big hullabaloo there, and the other kid, you know, it's not, his turn isn't over, and so on. So the parents are going to come in and do something about that behavior. But what do parents usually do? Okay, when the kid has grabbed the iPad, what's the first thing that a parent would naturally do when walking into that scene?
I mean, I can tell you that my go-to is, "Oh my gosh, stop it already." Stop.
Yes. Stop fighting over that thing. You're both going to lose. I'm going to take it away, whatever it is. We try to end a behavior by telling kids to stop it. That's a very natural thing for us to do. Now, even if we succeeded in that moment where everybody drops their iPads and goes, "Oh, sorry, yeah, okay," and they all walk away, which would be a wonderful ending for that. If we've done that, that's great, but we haven't changed the brain at all. So the next time the kid wants the iPad and the other one has it, or the toy, or whatever it is, right? He still has that trigger of frustration. I want it, you have it, I go down this road, okay? This road. So nothing has changed, even if we stop that scene. Now, let's say we were more intent on teaching rather than just stopping the scene. So as a parent, we explain, we can't grab, we need to be respectful to each other. It's his turn. You need to be patient. You need to wait. We go a 10-minute explanation of why we don't grab. And even we can include...
They're probably not paying attention.
Even if we had a 2-minute explanation of why we don't grab, and even if we add in there what we should do instead. So we could add at the end of the explanation, so you know what we should do is when you want to use the iPad and he says no, if you're feeling frustrated, you can come to me. That's one option. Come to your mother or father and we can help. Or maybe for a very young kid or for your older kid, you need to just turn around and go do something else and come back in a few minutes when it's actually your turn. Okay. Now, that's a very common technique to explain to stop doing what you're doing and do the new thing. Does that make any change in the person's brain?
If it did,
if it did, yes.
Then my kids would never fight.
That's right. The same fight is going to happen again and again and again because the circuit in the brain, the only one that's there is when you feel frustrated that he's got something you want, you grab it. That is the circuit. Okay. So the parent yakking away there and teaching does not change the brain. And that's why the part of the book that explains neuroplasticity is so important and really helps us to understand we are wasting our breath, but worse than that, because what did I say before that the brain really enjoys?
Attention?
Yeah, stimulation, right?
Stimulation.
So imagine a parent coming and spending, the other kid is screaming and the parent comes and spends, a few minutes talking about this and eye contact and lots of attention. And by the way, some of the most guilty parties of this are teachers, school teachers, right? So when a child misbehaves, sometimes the kid will get the principal or the teacher one-on-one to explain, what you're doing wrong and why you can't do that, and lots of understanding about your frustration and lots of explanation about what you need to do next time and so on. So all of that stuff is actually adding more wires to a particular circuit. But in this case, what circuit is it adding the wires to?
Well, they're getting attention for this behavior.
For this, I'm going to call it misbehavior in a way. For the grabbing. Okay. Now, I don't mean misbehavior in that way. Like, I don't look at children as like well-behaved and badly behaved and so on. It's more like healthy behavior or unhealthy behavior, appropriate behavior, inappropriate behavior, a behavior that's going to make them successful and happy versus behavior that's going to ruin their lives. That's how I look at it. So it's not,
I mean, I know as a kid, I remember that if I didn't want to, my kids won't watch this, so nobody tell them. But I remember thinking, oh, so I don't really feel like paying attention in class. So if I do something, annoying to the teacher over and over again, then I'm just gonna, I'll get kicked out and I could go play cards in the hall. And then
you were smart.
yeah, well, I mean, we had a whole group of people that we figured it out, and there was like 4 of us because it was like a 4-person game, and we used to just have a game during certain classes every day.
Wow.
Yeah, we figured it out. It just reinforced it.
Right. But why didn't the teachers figure out what behavior was going on there? Okay, so the thing is that the brain likes, we said, stimulation, and says, add more wires. So now we've got 2 ways that we can get wires in the brain. One, the child himself does something. So we said the child throws a ball, or the child writes the ABCs, whatever, or whatever the child does. Every time the child practices it, okay, a new wire is formed. We can think of it that way. Every time you practice, a new wire is added to this little road, or you might think of it as, first of all, a dirt road.
Practice the positive behavior.
It's a strong, no, anytime we do anything, okay? Anytime we do anything. So, for example, if we are chewing food with our mouth open, whatever, I'm talking at whatever the table. If we did that, our brain is recording us doing that and adds a wire at every meal that we do it, okay? Now, so if we did that at 3 meals, let's pretend we're getting 3 wires, okay? I don't know if it's a wire a minute or wire a second or wire a chew, I don't know what it is, but let's just say we got 3 wires at 3 meals. But we can actually get a lot more wires for that behavior by adding stimulation to the brain, where the brain goes, oh, this is even more important than I thought, okay? So, for example, if the parents say, every time the kid has food dripping from his mouth, the parents say, close your mouth and chew with your mouth closed, okay? Now, if they just say that, I say that you've given the kid 50 more wires, okay? He got 1 wire for chewing and 50 wires for the stimulation that you just gave him by looking in his eyes and talking to him while he was doing that behavior, okay? You gave attention to that circuit, so the circuit gets more wires to it. Now, we all know, I think from 50 years ago or whatever already, that we should not give attention to behaviors that we don't want to see. But that has not stopped any of us from marching in and saying to a kid, stop doing what you're doing, okay? Close your mouth when you eat, okay? Lower your voice, okay? All of that is a form of attending to a circuit in the brain, and it causes the circuit to be strengthened, all right? So the question obviously becomes, how are we going to get the kid to do the right thing? Because if we correct him, which is one of our favorite techniques, correction, all right, or explanation, or education, or lecturing, which is just a longer form of all of that. If we do any of those, we're simply adding wires to the wrong circuit. Now, do you remember what the book said? A little test for you. Let's get your wires going. Do you remember what the book said we need to do to get a new circuit?
Yes.
No pressure, no pressure. I'm going to tell you if you get it.
Okay, so we have to define the positive action that we want to see.
Yes, and in the book I call that the target behavior.
The target behavior.
We have what's called the problem behavior, the behavior we're trying to get rid of, and the target behavior. Now, another very important point is that when you tell a kid to stop doing something, in terms of wiring, what have you just done?
You've added wire. You've paid attention.
Yes.
And then also you said that every single, like, if you smile at them while, or touch them or look them in the eyes while you're doing that, you're reinforcing that.
Parental presence. And again, I know that some of our listeners, remember, what's his name, Skinner, and, behaviorism, unfondly probably. It was a school of thought that, of just manipulating people almost by, attending to behaviors that you want and not attending to behaviors that you don't want or whatever. And parents these days do not look at children that way, which is correct. We're not, but that does not exempt us from the laws of the brain. Okay. In other words, just because we don't look at things that way doesn't mean the brain is not doing its own thing. So what the brain is doing is it is noticing what the person is doing and saying, and it's recording it and making circuits for it. And the brain is noticing what things work and what things bring more stimulation and is adding wires to that circuit. No matter what we say about it, that is happening. Whether we like it or we don't like it, that is happening. And that is explaining why we keep having to correct the same behavior or the same inappropriate behavior, whatever it is, over and over and over, sometimes for decades. Okay, like it's just like for years, right? It's not getting better, but we're not noticing that. Now, when we tell a child to stop doing something, have we built a new circuit in the brain?
No.
You say, don't hit people when you want something, or don't whine when you're asking me for something, or do not raise your voice, to me, or don't call me names. Like let's say the kid said, "Could I please go sleep over at my friend's house?" Said,
oh, I loved what you said about, like, basically they don't hear the not, or they don't hear the no. Like they'll just hear, like if you say, like, don't chew with your mouth open.
Don't touch that vase. Okay?
Yeah. So all they hear is the part that you said, touch that vase, exactly. And they don't hear the rest of it.
Those little words, the not,
But we all do that when we're reading and skimming, and we're not really
do not think of a pink elephant, right? And the not gets dropped from the brain somehow, and we have to think of a pink elephant when we're told not to. So we need to keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. When we tell a kid, don't do this and don't do that. Okay, but when we tell a child, don't, let's say the child calls you a name or says, you're so stupid, to a parent, okay? And we find this an unacceptable way of communicating. We, as parents, have been very careful to use kind words, respectful words, not to insult our children. And then we have this kid who's telling us we're so stupid because we said no to him. Like, can I go to my friend's house? No, it's a school night, sweetie. You're so stupid. You're so mean. I hate you. Now, in some schools of thought, parents might today say, if you understand the child's frustration, and you say, sweetie, I know you're upset and I know you're frustrated. I know you really wanted to go. Eventually, the kid will calm down and maybe even apologize for speaking to you the wrong way, okay? Which I don't disagree with. I think that emotional coaching and understanding is very important. But if that's all you did right here, what's going to happen the next time you say no? Well, the kid has a circuit between the frustration he feels when you say no and calling you names, let's say. And he's done it, and he does it, and he does it, and he's always sorry. Okay, like an abusive spouse. Always sorry that I punched a hole in the wall or screamed at you or swore at you. I'm so sorry. But it goes on and on and on, okay? Because the circuit in the brain. So the most important thing for the parents to do is keep their eye on the target behavior, which is a new road. When we're feeling frustrated, when that child is feeling frustrated, instead of going down, okay, I'm frustrated with you, so now I'm going down this road and I am calling you stupid, okay, or saying I hate you. We want the child to have a wire in his brain that goes down a new road. What might the new road be? So you say, the child says, can I sleep over at my friend's tonight? And we say, no, honey, it's a school night. I don't want you to do that. It's not a good idea. Okay. And the kid is like not happy, right? So what's going to be the road? What do we want the kid to do?
We want the kid to talk nicely. But that's too vague.
It's way too vague. I don't talk nicely as a weird wire. Okay. Like I need, if for a target behavior, we want to be able to tell the child exactly what to do. Yes.
So we want the child, when we say no, to respectfully I mean, I'm just saying, like, practically speaking, because they're going to probably try to push it once, right? Like, it's not practical for them to not push it once, or is it the expectation that if you say no, the answer is no?
And in my other book, Raise Your Kids Without Raising Your Voice, I have a chapter called the I do not argue with you rule, where I kind of expect the kid to push it once. Okay, so the parent says no, and the child says, usually on the first round, the child says, please, I promise I'll get up earlier, I promise I'll do all my homework, or please, please, whatever, okay? And so when the kid asks once, I call that round one. And when the kid is going, please, please, I call that round two. Okay, now in round two, I say the parent can change her mind if she wants. She can say like, okay, well, if you promise, okay, fine, you can go tonight, okay? Or the parent can say, it is a school night and the rule in our house is no, so no, okay? Now that takes us back to square one, okay? So now we're at a real final no. So the kid here goes, you're so mean, you're so stupid, you're the worst in the block, I don't know, like, you never let me do anything, whatever. That's what the kid does because he's frustrated, right? And we've determined that that kind of behavior will not serve him well in his future relationships. And we don't want him practicing that, wiring it in. Practice causes new wires to be formed. So we've decided unilaterally that that's not a good way of handling frustration. Now, it's a funny thing, but when I ask parents, so what do you want the kid to do instead? This is actually one of the hardest things for us to think of. So I don't know. Like, I just want him to stop doing that.
It's true. It's really, when I was reading the book, I was like good at all the activities except for that one. Somebody just said, take 3 deep breaths and go to calendar to find a good day to sleep over, but not if the kid's having a temper tantrum, because then you're just feeding the behavior, right?
Well, that would handle this. Let's say, like, it's a
before
very general, for this, we might say, what do I want the kid to do? So the answer here is, I want him to take 3 deep breaths and then go to the calendar and find something else. Okay, like, now that might handle this particular thing, but it's not going to be a general. His general problem is that when the trigger is that he's frustrated, he becomes verbally abusive. Okay, that's the thing. So when we're looking for the target behavior, really we want a bigger picture, not how to solve this sleepover problem, but rather
a bigger picture, but specific.
The bigger problem is that he is verbally abusive when things don't go his way. So when things don't go his way is the trigger. So when things don't go his way, what do I want him to say and do? Okay. So we might come back to this 3 deep breath things for a minute, but I'll just say this on this before we get to the target behavior. A lot of times when we do suggest a target behavior, it is the kind of behavior that no adult would do, let alone a kid. Okay. So if our children are frustrating us and we go like, I cannot stand this anymore. Okay. That's our problem behavior. Okay. And then if our spouse is standing nearby and says, listen, you need to take 3 deep breaths. Okay. And then think about what you want to say to the kids. What would we say to our spouse? Realistically.
Probably nothing that I should say right here.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing we can talk about. Because first of all, when we're really upset about something, all that stuff is not something that any of us are doing, except maybe this person who wrote this said maybe he's doing that. I'm not sure, but most people, neither children nor adults, do it. And one of the key things about a target behavior is it must be something that normal kids that age do when they're just behaving at a better level. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's say the kid who said, could I sleep over, is 10, okay, 10 years old. And when things don't go his way, he starts, you're so stupid, you're so mean, I hate living in this house. Like, that's what he does. Okay. When we're thinking, well, if a kid was 10 years old and handled frustration better, what would that look like? Okay? Like, that's what the book is asking us to think about. Okay. What would a normal 10-year-old do? Not a 30-year-old or a 50-year-old or wise 80-year-old. What would a normal 10-year-old do who was handling his frustration pretty well? Do you know what a 10-year-old might do if we said no and the kid wasn't happy about it?
So the person who said the 3 deep breaths said, when you're in your red zone, you need to go have thinking time, which I think is actually, like, one of my kids does do well with taking time, but I think it also requires adults to to remind the kid. So it's not really I guess it's a tool that could be reminded, but it's not something that will be intuitive. I don't know.
This is a really complicated question.
It is. It's so hard.
Yes.
And then somebody else said, I tell my child, you can get angry, but you can't shout, curse, break things.
It's great information, but does that add a new wire to the kid's brain?
Well, we're not telling them, we can't tell them don't things. We have to tell them what we want from them.
Yeah, so this person is kind of at the introductory stage. When we tell the person what we want them to do, that is good information, okay? But does it add a wire to the brain? Okay, it's like this is the thing about the book, is that even though it's small, it must be carefully read, because it's not there. I don't know of another book that is like it, actually, in the sense that it's going to really pinpoint what we need to do and what we need to stop doing,
right.
And why. Okay,
right. It was very practical, like where it less theory. It was very
very
targeted,
very
and it's something I feel like it's something you have to read a few times.
Yes, and it will only take you an hour each time. So
right.
Now, the thing is, the kid, if we tell the child, you need to speak, and what did the person say? You can't shout, curse, break things. Okay, then there's an instruction of what not to do. Okay, so we've already clarified here that when we give somebody instruction of what not to do, that's very interesting, but it doesn't change the brain. Could you refresh our memory, Rebecca?
Neuroplasticity?
What changes the brain? What is going to change the brain?
Well, I could say that the kid won't remember the can't in that sentence.
Yeah, you can't shout, curse, or break
things.
Because
they only hear the shout, curse, break things.
That's one problem. That is one problem.
That's one problem.
Yes, but giving an instruction to not do something is problematic in terms of rewiring the brain, because there's no wire for not doing something. For example, right now, you are not balancing on a trapeze. Have you got a wire in your brain for not balancing on a trapeze? There's no wire for this, okay? You haven't got a wire right now for not driving a truck down the highway. There's no wire for not doing anything. Now, if there's no wire, what does that mean for the next time the trigger presents itself?
Well, it just means that there's no direction. If I'm this,
there is a direction, Rebecca. There's a direction, okay?
No, but if I'm lacking direction in even trying to come up with a better solution for the kid, then of course the kid is going to have a hard time coming up with alternate behaviors.
Well, we're not even asking the kid to think of the alternate behavior.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm having a hard time thinking, okay,
but here's the thing. He has a behavior, he has a circuit to handle his problem, okay? Mm-hmm. The one circuit that we have is the one that we use over and over and over again, okay? So the one circuit that he has is when he's frustrated, he becomes verbally abusive, all right? That's the circuit that he currently has. When the feeling gets tight in his heart and his muscles are tightening and he's mad and upset, the verbal abuse circuit runs, okay? Now, we can tell him, you're not allowed to curse, shout, or break things, okay? But when we say that, no new circuit is formed. So that there's only one way to form a circuit. In order to get the brain to put that new wire in, the new target behavior, the person has to run the circuit himself.
Right. Well, first you have to give the directive.
Yeah.
And then practice. Yeah.
But see, this parent here saying we don't curse, whatever, is hinting at what the new circuit might look like. But first of all, it's only a hint, because what we know about the new circuit is it doesn't have cursing, breaking, and shouting in it. Okay, but we also don't know what it has in it. We don't. The kid can't run that circuit because all he knows so far is what's not in it. Right. Right. Even then, because of the not problem, that he's only focusing on the problematic behaviors. Okay, but he needs to know exactly what you want him to do and say when he feels frustrated. That will be the definition of the target behavior. Therefore, you as a parent need to know what you want him to say and do. And in our example, the kid is 10 years old and he's not happy with your answer. Okay. So what would a pretty well behaved, pretty well adjusted, together kid do and say when things are not going his way? And what I ask parents to do is actually imagine a movie of the kids, the whole scene unfolding in somebody else's house, okay, where a child marches up to his parent and says, "Hi, can I go sleep over at my friend's house?" And the parent says, "No, it's a school night, not tonight." Okay, and then I want you to watch in the movie, what is the kid doing next? At the appropriate behavior, okay, this well-adjusted, well-behaved, socially appropriate, emotionally appropriate child. What is that kid doing right after the parent says no? That is the target behavior. Okay, so in your movie, Rebecca, what is the kid doing?
So the kid, I mean,
you don't know what
I don't want to be
We've never
wrong.
seen such a kid, right? We've never seen
I don't want to be wrong, but like, it's okay. I'll be wrong. It's okay. Okay, so I think, I think what I would say to, like, that the target behavior should be is when you're frustrated with my answers, it's okay to express your disappointment.
He's 10, Rebecca. He's 10.
Oh gosh. This is really hard. I know. So, like, I was so good at all the activities.
Did you have this movie? Did you see the movie in your mind of what this healthy kid is doing when the parent said no? What was the kid doing? I mean, remember, behavior is a matter of our actions and our words. It is what we are doing. It's not what we're thinking. There's so many more details in the book. Like, you really have to look carefully.
No, I know.
What the target behavior is not. Okay.
I know. This was, like, your examples were great, but I was trying to, like, translate them into my own. This is where I have to practice.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be doing an intense course on this in. I do live webinars for Jewish workshops. So for anybody who's interested, you can find on my shopping page, actually, on dailyparentingpost.com. That's
I love the daily parenting posts. They're so good.
Tidbits that I send out to email 4 times a week. So you can sign up for those. They're free at dailyparentingpost.com. I hope you'll put that somewhere in the notes. And then there's a shopping page there, which has a whole bunch of webinars and stuff. And one of them is called the Family Circle. And that's a place where I'm on weekly. And so we will be exploring this topic, in depth at some point. There might be a special course on it, or it'll just be up again and again and again, because it is so important in family relationships. So
I actually feel like somehow you know exactly what's going on in my house at any given time when I read these posts.
And everybody's house.
And you're like,
all the same.
How did you know that I needed to hear that?
That's what they all say.
Yeah.
Because we're all the same.
Okay,
so this kid, this 10-year-old, we're trying to picture what would a normal 10-year-old say once we've said no. No, you can't have the ice cream. No, you can't stay up late. No, you can't go sleep over at your friend's house. No, you can't come out with us tonight because it's just for mommy and daddy. We're going out ourselves. Okay. No.
Well, a normal 10-year-old would probably be really disappointed.
They would feel disappointed.
What
would they say and do?
Like,
oh God. How can we get the book in Toronto? Somebody's asking. It is sold, actually, because it was published by a Jewish publisher. It's in some Jewish bookstores in Toronto, like Israel's. It's on Amazon.com in the US. It is supposed to be put up at a reasonable price on Amazon.ca. So keep looking, because the publisher told me it will be there. It is available on Amazon.ca, but at an unreasonable price. If you're in Toronto, you can get me.
And if anyone's ordering it on Amazon.com, go to smile.amazon.com and register for Project Proactive, and then we'll get 0.5%.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Donated back to us.
That is wonderful. And so it'll be available for worldwide delivery. Just keep checking back and actually say that on bookdepository.com, which has free worldwide delivery. It's waiting to get on there. So you can actually search for it now and put your name on the waiting list to be notified when it becomes available. So I am sorry for the lag in time for inaccessibility, but it will be around very soon and hopefully worth the wait.
But I want to hear, because this part's hard for me. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
But can you tell me? Can you spoon feed me?
I'm good. Of course, I'll tell you. Okay. But it won't change your brain until you do it. Okay.
I know.
So this is the thing, and there's so many details here. But the thing is, the target behavior is at least important to identify. So I picture the parents saying no, and a kid looking like he feels, looking not happy. Okay. So his facial expression may be a little grumpy looking, and I say, even in the book, I say, okay, a kid can say something like that, like he's 10. So he can make a little noise and a little frown, okay? And then he can turn around and walk out, okay? This well-adjusted kid who is not verbally abusive and not throwing things around the room and not hurting anybody and not, hurting himself in the process. He is unhappy, and he's 10. So he goes, "Mwah," and he turns around and walks out. Kind of growls a little bit. He doesn't even have to say any words. He's 10. And if he was 17, and he said, could I borrow the car tonight? And the parents said, no, we're using it. The kid might go, make that kind of face and sigh, right? Maybe you wouldn't have that little growling sound. But even even an adult, if you said to your spouse, hey, do you want to go out for dinner tonight? And your spouse goes, no. And you go like, You're like, and then you turn around and leave. It's okay to make that face and that sound, but not okay to say, well, I hate you, like the kid is saying in our example. So, and then now that I've told you, let's say I've told my kid, this is the target behavior. Has he got a wire in his brain for it? Will he do it next time? No, because he hasn't done it yet. Okay. So how are we going to get that wire, the first wire in his brain?
You practice.
Yes. Okay. Now, the details for all that, and I know we're kind of running near the end of our time, but the whole details of practicing is crucial because you know what he needs to do. At least now we found the target behavior for this. Okay.
Yeah, this one was a hard one.
They're all hard.
I know. Some of them I was good at.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to. I don't want you to think that I wasn't good at any of them. But it is a really. It requires me to rewire my brain in order to
like the example I have in the book of the kid who's he's not using a knife and fork, he's eating with his hands. Okay, and it's like he's eating spaghetti with his hands. He's making a big mess. All right, so the parents keep saying to him when they see this, don't eat with your hands, or they might even say, if they're a little bit more advanced in understanding things, they might say, use your fork. Okay, so the kid uses his fork. Now, what have they wired in? This is really
if they said use your fork?
Yeah. He was eating with his hands, and then they said use your fork. I'll tell you first of all what's going to happen. He will continue to eat with his hands, and they will continue to say use your fork for several years, maybe 6 or 10 years, or depends on how old he is, maybe 15 years. And there's a reason for that. Can you remember what the reason is? I know I'm testing you here, because
no. I remember because you're giving attention to it.
Yes,
right.
You spoke to him. If when he was using his hands, like I say in the book, if you start clucking like a chicken or something, and you're looking at him and going whatever, or singing a song, or telling him use your fork, the brain went, oh, I was just doing this. And somebody spoke to me. Wow, do this again. Okay, that's what it's doing. What's the target behavior in this case? This would be an easy one.
Leanne just said he needs to practice with his fork.
Yes, he needs to practice with his fork. But he did just pick up his fork. Now, the book explains a metaphor for the wiring thing. Every time we do something or say something, we get one wire. When somebody speaks to us, we get 50 more wires. When they say certain things to us that I won't go into now because we're running out of time, they can get 100 wires. And when we reward them with either punishment or rewards, they can get 1,000 wires. Okay, so they can get for a certain behavior 1,150 wires plus the 1 wire that the kid did. Okay, now we gave the child, he ate with his hands. That was 1 wire. We spoke to him. Now he's got 51 wires on that circuit, and now he's using his fork. How many wires does he get for using the fork?
I really don't remember these numbers.
1. Every time you do something, 1 wire.
Oh, 1. Okay.
Yeah. So he got 51.
Oh, but when you pay attention to.
Yes, and we'll end on that note because this is what the parents don't naturally do. Okay. Now that the child is using his fork, we can add 1,150 wires. Okay, and we would do that by using. I won't get technical here, but we're going to give him attention for using for doing the behavior. Oh,
the target behavior.
There's a guy, who's eating with his fork. Okay, that's great eating. Okay, and that adds now 50. So now he's got 51 for doing the wrong thing, and 51 for doing the right thing. All right, we have to give more wires to the new circuit. So then we give a label to this behavior. You're very well mannered, okay? That's the way a little gentleman eats or whatever, okay? So that actually, the label organizes the brain in a certain way. So we're giving him 100 wires for that. Now he's got 151, okay? And because you're eating with a fork, I think we might even have a cake for dessert, which also requires a fork, okay? Or extra story time, or a big hug and kiss, or a high five, whatever it is, okay? Like reward however you want, but the brain loves stimulation. Right?
I love how in the book how you refer to reward as like a hug or like I think that's very special because it's just something that reinforces the behavior.
Yes.
That's
and so does glaring and staring at the child with your mad face and going, "Don't you ever do that again." Okay, that also gives you 1,000.
But in the wrong way.
The wrong direction. Yeah. So there's lots of different ways to reward the brain. Now, I'm not talking about the heart here. It's such an interesting aspect of parenting. But because we're dealing all day long with children who need to get up, they need to get dressed, they need to eat, they need to get out the door, they need to come home, they need to do their homework. Practically speaking, they need to have their bath and brush their teeth. We are dealing with behavior, but so ineffectively, with so much disastrous emotional consequence for all of us, okay, that we need to learn how to deal with behavior properly. And that's why I'm very excited about this book, and I hope that everybody will read it because I think it'll make a very big difference.
Also, I really love, I really, really, really love how it is balanced. The way that you wrote it, it is very balanced with the heart aspect as well.
Yes.
And
I believe in the heart.
I don't know. Like it's very, it's just beautifully written in that way where it really does, like the intentions are mapped out as something loving rather than commanding and
well, I think we're a little bit scared because the way earlier generations of parents tried to modify behavior, it was without regard for our heart sometimes, and it was very controlling. And so we have an association between behavioral, like the whole idea of behavior in parenting, we think is like Pavlovian. Yeah, like it's horrible. Okay, but I'm sorry, we cannot get away from behavior. It's happening every minute of our parenting day. So we just need to get on top of it.
Yes, and everybody who asked if we're going to save the live, it'll definitely be out for 24 hours, and I hope to God that it will save.
It'll save.
It'll save.
Save it. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
I have to go read the book again.
Yes.
So I can practice more, but it's so good. Everyone has to buy it, and also it's a good teacher present.
Oh gosh, yes.
For Hanukkah.
The teachers, yes. For any occasion, for the end of the year.
Yeah. I mean, it's addressed for parenting, but there's a lot that's in there for
it's so appropriate
for
teaching, and it's even appropriate. I would write the same book for marriage, just with different examples, the same exact. It's good, like you said at the beginning,
right?
For all behaviors in everybody.
Yeah, it's amazing. I would definitely Hanukkah presents for all the teachers, Christmas presents, whatever you. Yeah. Better Behavior Now. That's the name of the book.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.